Good afternoon. This is Tia Torres with another episode of Doing the Time with Tia Torres. So I wanted to somewhat continue the conversation that we were having in the previous episode. But let me take a little step back for a second. And I want to talk about something that, or not something, but a label that seems to follow me around, and it all plays into this, okay? So many of you know that for 13 years, we had a show on Animal Planet called Pit Bulls and Parolees. My work is based around the most, I'm going to use the word notorious type of dog, pit bulls, and human people coming out of prison, okay? And at the surface, when the show first came out, people assumed it was going to be about guys getting into fights and dogs attacking each other, and nothing could be further from the truth. It was about rehabilitation, redemption, giving second chances. Let's go with that one. Let's go with that term, second chance. Because it seems to have been a label that has stuck on me for many years. And I tend to think people misuse it and overuse it. It's gotten to the point where it's a little bit of a ugh feeling when I hear it, associated with my name. And let me explain where I'm going with this. Dogs, as far as we know, are not vindictive. They're not malicious. They don't seek revenge. They are not psychotic. And I'm saying this for a reason. When we get a dog in for bad behavior into our rescue, meaning it's bitten somebody, it's attacked somebody, you want to say, oh my gosh, this poor dog deserves a second chance. And the answer is, well, within reason, okay? But first we need to figure out why this dog did what it did, which of course is very difficult because dogs don't speak human. So all we can do is try to hope that our knowledge of dog behavior and figuring out the actual scenario that brought the dog to this point is what helps us determine if this dog is salvageable and safe to go out into the community to get a new home. Now, there have been times when I've seen a dog, and I'm going somewhere with this, guys, so just bear with me. I've seen a dog brought in to an animal shelter, and because it's severely harmed a child. I've seen dogs brought into the shelter that have killed a child. That's extreme. That's extreme. Okay? Now, do I know the details behind it? No. It's just, there's no such thing yet as like a dog detective that will actually go out there and analyze what happened. And that's a whole nother show or topic I wanted to talk about, which is like a CCSI investigator, like a canine crime scene investigator who actually will go out there and figure out what happened. I think it would be a cool ass thing to do, but there isn't. You have like an animal control officer, and most of the time they're not qualified in serious dog behavior. So we don't know. We just know that maybe this dog killed this child. This dog mauled this child. And I'm using this as an example. So you then have to go, the dog seems friendly to me, but can you ever fully trust that dog? I don't know. Like I said, the only thing I can say with certainty is that dogs, as far as we know, do not have that malicious intent, that vengeful and it's usually sparked by something that happened around them, or in some cases it could be genetic, meaning they're wired wrong, bad breeding. Okay, so there's a lot of components that can cause a dog to do what they do. Okay. So second chances with dogs, although it sounds so romantic, doesn't necessarily work the same with humans. Okay? Let me explain why. When a human does something horrific, okay, we can communicate. We can talk about it. We can ask them questions. We can dig into their background. We can see how they were raised. We can see all kinds of things. And unlike dogs, humans do have revenge in their heart at times, jealousy, rage, ill intent. So it's a little bit of a different kind of animal. Okay. So for me, who has been exposed to both worlds, which is like the dogs and then people going to prison for doing a crime, the word second chance doesn't quite mean the same. Where with a dog, I hold that term a little bit looser, but at the same time, it's harder to figure it out because, again, we don't have that English language communication type of thing. And we don't have the tools to be able to really dig into the dog's background as much as you can with a human. So for this particular episode, let's now that I've given you the dog analogy of this, let's talk about the human aspect. When people ask me, or they say to me, like if I make a post about a certain person who's committed a crime, or maybe an inmate who I'm trying to help, the go-to phrase is always, everybody deserves a second chance. And you know what? My answer is not what you would think, because I don't believe that is true. Let's talk about this, because I hinted to it on the last episode when we began to talk about the Menendez brothers. And I'm sure I'm going to piss some people off here. So, that being said, I am a supporter of giving second chances, okay? Which is why I feel like I'm the perfect person to speak about this. One of the things that the district attorney's office talked about when they were thinking about giving the Menendez brothers a shot at parole was, do they feel they would offend again? If they were released, would they be a danger to society? I don't think they would. I really don't. You know, they're both married. I know Eric is. I think Lyle's still married. Their wives have been with them for 1,000,000 years. And I think Eric's wife went on to become an attorney. And I don't know much about them. They've managed to kind of stay out of the public eye a lot. And, you know, although I don't know that I would have married someone who committed the crimes they did, I think everybody has a right to marry who they want and to be in love with who they want. So I would never, ever condemn or say anything wrong or bad about the women who married the Menendez brothers. You know, I would be very supportive of them, actually. But let's talk about just a few of the details on what they did. They killed their parents. I tend to take it a step further. Slaughtered their parents. I think I read somewhere 15 shotgun shots. I think it was Eric who, when he saw that his mother was still alive, he blasted her in the face. And you know what? If I'm wrong, feel free to make a comment and tell me I'm wrong, and I will admit it. But I'm pretty sure I saw that. Now, the defense always was that they had been molested by their father. Now, you have to remember, when this story or this crime happened, I lived in Los Angeles. Although I didn't like get super involved in it because I was young back then, but I was there. You know, I saw the big ruckus going on, you know, and I lived very close to the heart of where this happened. And I saw it on TV. At the time, I didn't buy it. I'm like, they weren't molested. Look at them, you know, acting on TV with the crying. I didn't believe it. But then that Netflix movie came out, or miniseries, I think it was. And I spoke about it on the last episode. Oh, God, you guys have to watch it. Again, the actors who portrayed Lyle and Eric deserve all the credit. And the producing of it. The producing was amazing because they humanized Eric and Lyle. They told a great story. They also told a very balanced version of it. So you kind of went, did they do it for this reason or are they lying? It was done very well. But in watching that Netflix miniseries, that's when my tune did change. I went, you know what? I think they were. I think their dad did do something to them. And I'm like, okay, I'm changing my tune. But do I feel that when somebody commits a crime and they're young, like a teenager, do we give them a little bit of like, oh man, kids just don't always think straight? Yes, I am one of those people. I do. And they tried to use that in Eric and Lyle's case. But I think Eric was like 18 and Lyle was like 21. They were young, but they weren't that young. Okay? I mean, for all intents and purposes, they were legal age, to buy alcohol, to buy cigarettes. I mean, that's what the law says. Also, it's so easy for me to sit here and go, this is what I would have done. But to me, it felt like overkill. But again, you know what? Hold on, Tia. If what they said happened, they were angry, it's possible. But here's where my tune changed. And that was their behavior afterwards. Yeah. I read an article that said they blew through $700,000 in like 6 months. Just went on a shopping spree, having a great time. And that part got to me. I was like, here's where my thinking goes. I do not feel they should be let out. Again, not because I feel they're dangerous. I don't think they would ever commit a crime again. To me, it would open up the door, meaning other people who are in prison for killing somebody, but not even as brutal as what they did, we'd be going, hold on, I forgot to tell you, my dad molested me too. And people would start using that as a defense or an excuse. I think it would have caused a big shitstorm to let them out. Again, based on the brutality. Guys, they didn't just like shoot their dad and walk away. Okay? That being said, why did they have to shoot their dad? They were of age. They just could have left. Just leave. Again, I don't know all the meat and potatoes of every incident, or excuse me, every detail in the case. And I am being a hypocrite. I admit it. Because, when you hear about people that are in domestic violence situations and they say, why can't you just leave? I was one of those people. It took me a while to leave. So I get it. Maybe their dad had this power over them and they just were too scared to leave. I don't know. So all emotion aside, let's remove the emotion. Let's remove my opinion and just get down to that opening of the door. Meaning, if they were to be let out, I think legally it would cause a shitstorm. For past cases where people would then start coming up with that excuse to try to have their case reheard, and for future crime of somebody who offs one of their parents and says, I did it because he or she molested me. And I do feel bad saying that. From what I've heard, Eric and Lyle are very nice people. Or, I mean, with the exception of what happened. But when do we say, hey, this is a little bit more than just killing somebody? Today, a story came across my feed that Tennessee just set the date for execution for the state's only woman on death row. And this is a crazy story. Her name is Krista Pike. And she actually received the death sentence at the age of 18 in the 1995 torture slaying of Colleen, a woman named Colleen Slemmer, who was a fellow Job Corps student. And Colleen was beaten, stabbed by Krista Pike and her then boyfriend, Tadero Ship, if I'm pronouncing it right, on the University of Tennessee's agricultural campus. But listen to the details, okay? And this is a really good one to talk about. They carved a pentagram into her chest, and then Krista Pike took a piece of the victim's skull for a souvenir. Yeah, crazy. See, wow. Now, she was 18. I don't know when her date's been set yet. I guess there was a stale, they stopped the death penalty for a few years, and so they reenacted it, and so I guess she's got a date coming. Now, here's where I'm going to be a hypocrite again, and I'm going to get super controversial on this one, because I'm not going to be able to give you all the details. I know of a woman who went to prison. She was also young, but she was an actual teenager. And she was put in prison for a pretty brutal beating and killing somebody, robbing this woman. And they resentenced her because she was put in prison as a young girl. I want to say like 16. And after, I think, 20-some years, they let her out. And I know her. And she's the sweetest thing you've ever met. Okay, crazy, right? So, when is a second chance worth taking? How brutal does the crime have to be or not be? Am I a hypocrite because the person I know is just a sweet woman now? Food for thought, everybody. Right? So it's that second chances. I'm going to say it again. No. Everybody, in my opinion, does not always deserve a second chance. And I'm going to leave you with this. If you feel that is true, would you have ever wanted Charlie Manson or Jeffrey Dahmer or the Night Stalker as your next door neighbor? Okay, well, this is Tia Torres signing off for this episode. And remember, when they do the time, so do we.